What up, YouTube? It's been a little while, it's been a hot minute, but I am back with 5 things I have completed in the recent past. And right now I am wearing my Rhea Bloody Ripley shirt. Mommy's always on top because we got Elimination Chamber coming up this weekend and it's going to be fucking awesome. So, little wrestling action to theme this one in. So, 5 things. We got a book, a TV show, and then a bunch of video games. First up, the book. Oh, and I forgot to even pick it up. Here it is. Canticle. Book 1 in a series called The Cleric Quartet, which is from the Forgotten Realms series. It's been a while since I have reviewed a Forgotten Realms book, but if you remember back when I did that not so long ago, these are a long-running series of books that started, I think, in the late 80s or early 90s, and I read back when I was like maybe 10, 11, 12, that kind of range. I had 3 or 4 of them, and I really liked them. But there were so many other things I always wanted to read that I only had a few of them. But then when I found that Thrift Books app, I ordered a whole bunch of them. So I've been reading my way through these books. And so I'm basically doing a series and then a one-off and then a series and then a one-off. So right now it's time to do a series, and it's a quartet. So no, quintet, not quartet, quintet. So there are 5 books in this series. And this is obviously the opening one, book 1, called Canticle. So in the mystical realm of the Forgotten Realms, there is a place called Castle Trinity, which is home to evil wizards. And then there is a place called the Edificant Library, which is a very renowned place of learning where scholars and monks and all sorts of priests and stuff go to study and learn about various subjects. So in Castle Trinity, there are basically 3 kind of wizards working together to accomplish something. Abalister Bonaducci is the main character in this, and he is trying to find the ingredients and brew something called the Chaos Curse. The Chaos Curse is a potion that, when released, once it infiltrates a person, it will cause them to act on their deepest desires, regardless of the consequences. Now, just when he's completed this Chaos Curse, one of his rival priests, or wizards, evil wizards, Bargain, swoops in and takes it from him. And the other wizard involved in this is a female named Dorigen. She doesn't really play much of a part in this story. And then there's an imp that can turn invisible, this little bat-like creature from the netherworld named Druzil, who works with Abalister, kind of in a partnership. They don't really like each other, but they're brought together through their evil desires. But Bargain steals this Chaos Curse, and he's like, we hate those guys at the Edificant Library, those holy do-gooder priests, so I'm going to take it there and I'm going to let it loose, and it's going to cause all sorts of chaos. Literally, it is the Chaos Curse. So he does that. He infiltrates the catacombs beneath the library and lets this Chaos Curse loose. But in order to do so, they can't actually touch and instigate the release of this potion. So once in the castle or in the library, Bargain has to manipulate somebody into doing it for him. So the person he does get it to do it for him is a young priest named Catterley, who is kind of an orphan and who has grown up in the library. And he's a bit of a wild card. He doesn't take his studies very seriously in certain respects, doesn't take his chores very seriously. He's always inventing gadgets and going off on wild schemes and stuff like that. So he's always getting in trouble. But Bargain picks him to release this Chaos Curse. Catterley's allies, his girlfriend Danica, who is very well-versed in fighting and is there doing some studies from an ancient scholar who had all these methods of fighting and these other techniques, physical feats that she wants to learn about, as well as a guy named Rufo Kirkin, who's kind of a Weasley guy who has a bit of a rivalry with Catterley. So Rufo gets caught up in this scheme with Bargain to make Cataly unleash the Chaos Curse against his own will, but he still causes it to happen. And then once the Chaos Curse is released within the library, it descends into absolute craziness. All the fat priests that give in to their like gluttonous desires, and a lot of them basically eat themselves to death. Kirk and Rufo lets his horniness for Danica loose, and he kind of goes after her, and she has to put him into his place. And then there's all sorts of violence and other stuff going on in the castle. So Catterley, though, seems unaffected by it, and the theory is that because he's the one who released the curse, he is not affected by it. The other, and Danica as well, is still affected by it, but is able to battle through it with the help from a druid who is staying in the library, who is unaffected by it, a guy named Newander. So basically, Catterley, Newander, Danica once she is released from the curse by Newander, and then a couple of dwarves, Ivan and his brother Pickle, who work in the kitchens in the library. Dwarves are very resistant to magic and stuff like that. So although they fall under the sway a little bit, Catterley's able to talk them out of it and make them see sense. So basically, the rest of the story is Catterley trying to figure out just what the hell is going on within the castle, which he eventually does. So then he takes along Pickle, Ivan, to go into the catacombs, find this priest, this evil wizard Bargain, and stop the Chaos Curse. And eventually once Danica is brought back to normal, her and Newander enter the fray as well. So it's basically these 5 allies heading into the catacombs underneath the library and dealing with Bargain and putting a stop to this Chaos Curse, which they eventually do. I'll tell you right now, because you know what, we got 4 more books coming, so you're gonna find out what happens anyways. So great book. I got started on it months ago and got into it. It was months and months ago, because I started it when it was still good weather out, that I could sit out on my back porch and read on my little chair after I got home from work. So that was like maybe October. So I started it a long time ago, and then I just got busy, got distracted, and but recently was able to get back into it. And once I started reading it more consistently, I fell in love with this book and the story and the characters. It flew by. And you're going to find out soon that the other books are starting to fly by as well. So, but great series, great book. Can't wait to finish it off with the next 4 books. Second up, the TV series. One of my favorite TV series of all time. A Netflix exclusive. One of the original, I believe, Netflix exclusives. Stranger Things. So Stranger Things, to me, I watched the original 2 seasons when they first came out a long time ago. Loved it. But then there was a little bit of a lag between season 2 and season 3, and then I kind of lost track of it and always wanted to get back into it, but just never got around to it. So when I was looking for something to watch recently, now that I'm on my own, I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna get back to Stranger Things. And just I started from the beginning again so that I could refresh myself, and just plowed through all 4 seasons that are available right now. So basically, it started in 2016, and then I believe season 2 was 2017, and then season 3 was maybe 2019. There was a bit of a lag there, and then another lag between, or maybe it was even 18, but I think it was 19, and then COVID delayed the 4th season, and it wasn't out till 2022 or something like that. So, and then season 5 is supposed to be out sometime this year, but I think later in the year, and it's going to be the final season. So basically, Stranger Things, it takes place in a small fictional town called Hawkins, Indiana, and focuses on this small group of kids and some of the adults in their lives as they fall upon this really, really strange phenomenon that's going on in the town. So there is a facility called the Department of Energy that is all fenced off and very strange. Nobody knows what it is, but it looks like a government facility, obviously based on energy. But what's going on inside, I think part of it is energy stuff is going on, but there's also a lot of experiments going on, and they are shady. And there are young children being experimented on, and the basis of these experiments are like telepathy and the stuff when you can move shit with your mind and do like the force, basically like force pushing somebody. I forget what the term is for that. Starts with a P or something. Those sorts of things. So one of the children in this facility, her original name is Jane, but they go by numbers that they have tattooed on their wrists, and she's known as 11. She ends up freaking out on some of the kids in the facility and killing them all, and in the process, with her powers, ends up opening this weird portal to what they dub later as the Upside Down. So basically, the Upside Down is a shadow dimension that exists beside the regular reality of our earthly selves. It exists right beside us, even though we can't see it. And in this shadow dimension are all sorts of horrible things. So basically, Elle has opened up this dimension, and nobody really knows about it until things start going crazy. So the group of kids I mentioned, there's 4 of them. There's Will Byers, Mike, I forget his last name, Lucas, and then Dustin. So these 4 kids, and this takes place in the 80s, which is awesome. So the first season takes place in 1983, and then I believe it goes to 84, late 84, and then it goes to 86, or no, 85, and then in the 4th season I think takes place in 86, maybe 87, but I think it's 86. And so these 4 kids are best buddies. They're playing Dungeons and Dragons all the time. They love Star Wars. They love action figures. Basically, they're me in the 80s. I could totally identify with what's going on in this series. So one night after a game of D&D at Mike's house, his 3 buddies bike home, and Will never makes it home. And so the town freaks out. They can't find him, and basically he's been taken captive by a demigorgon, as they call it. So this creature that has come out of the Upside Down into their current reality in Hawkins. It's got this weird face that opens up into like flower-shaped petals and has all these teeth inside. And but Will is taken captive, and the town freaks out. His mom Joyce freaks out, and his older brother Jonathan, and they're trying to find him. And eventually a body turns up, but Joyce is like, that's not him. There's no birthmark. So eventually, like, she gets the town's police chief Hopper involved in it, and he's like, Joyce, he's dead. I saw the body. But then she kind of convinces him eventually, and they start looking into it, and it's like, no, that isn't Will. Like, what's going on? So that this series is basically them first discovering what the fuck is going on, and Elle in the meantime escapes the facility and meets up with Mike and Dustin and Lucas as they're searching for Will out by the Department of Energy, and they end up taking her back to Mike's house, and she lives secretly in the basement, and they discover she has these abilities and stuff. So these young kids are sooner in on the punch of what's actually going on than the adults who don't believe it. But Joyce eventually convinces Hopper that something's not right, and he eventually gets like, yes, something's not right here. They find out something shady's going on at the Department of Energy, and eventually they kind of are able to confront the people there about what's going on, to their own detriment at times, because obviously it's a government agency, and they're going to do whatever the fuck they want regardless of what your feelings are, right? So eventually Will comes back from the Upside Down, but there's something not right with him. And so each season is basically like, okay, Will went missing in the first season, the Demigorgon's running loose, they deal with that problem. And the next season, Will gets taken over because he has this link to the Upside Down from being trapped there, to this being called the Mind Flayer, which is this big shadowy spider-like beast that takes residence in Will's body. And so the second season, they have to deal with this Mind Flayer creep and get rid of him. And then in the third season, the Mind Flayer, after being rejected in that second season, finally comes full circle into their reality, and they have to do battle with it. And a new character enters the group in season 2, a young girl named Max, who becomes friends with this group. And her older brother Billy gets basically taken over by the Mind Flayer, and so they have to deal with Billy. And then in the 4th season, the Mind Flayer's general named Vecna comes onto the scene and starts by killing people, opening portals all around the world to the Upside Down. And Max is one of his target victims, and they have to try and protect her from becoming one of Vecna's next victims. And he's kind of like Freddy Krueger in that he kind of haunts your subconscious, not necessarily when you're asleep, but he can kind of enter your subconscious and fuck with your reality and cause all these problems for you before he kills you. And one of the coolest filmed sequences I have ever seen in a TV show took place when Vecna was going after Max for the first time. And when all these other kids were killed by Vecna, this group of kids were the only ones to figure it out, because they know what's going on, but the general population doesn't know anything about this upside down shit. They just know that something weird's going on in Hawkins. So they know what Vecna's doing. They figure out, oh, these are the symptoms that all these kids were having before Vecna took them. Shit, Max is having these symptoms. She's on Vecna's list. Like, but how do we stop him? We don't know how. So they know Vecna's coming for Max. She starts writing all these letters to her friends, like to say like a final goodbye, because she knows her time is up. And eventually Vecna does come after her, while some of the kids are out looking for a way to stop Vecna. And it's kind of this sequence where they finally figure out how to do it, but are they going to be in time to save Max? And it's this epic sequence. And there's this really cool song from the 80s by this singer named Kate Bush that accompanies this whole kind of sequence where they're trying to save Max at the last minute. And it was just one of the coolest sequences in a TV show I have ever seen in my life. And I really hope it won an award, because it was awesome. And there's lots of other characters too, like Mike's older sister Nancy, and her first boyfriend Steve is a really cool character who ends up having a bromance with the younger kid Dustin, and they always spend this time together. There are so many really neat relationships and really neat characters in this TV show, and they did a fantastic job of casting. The biggest names in it are David Harbour plays the Chief Hopper, and then Winona Ryder plays Joyce Byers, Will's mom. Those are two of the biggest names, but great casting all around, and very great actors, very great writing, and such a cool thing. I love sci-fi, I love fantasy, I love monsters. So this show, it may not be for everybody, but it was right up my alley. And then you add in the fact that it all takes place in the mid 80s, which was fucking my wheelhouse as a kid. I was probably around the same age as these kids were when I was at that point in the 80s, right? So just the music tracks they used throughout, some of the toys in Mike's basement, like they had the old Kenner Millennium Falcon, which I still have in my basement somewhere. So there was just so many cool things about this show that drew me into it that I just couldn't get enough of it. So I am very pumped for season 5. It is going to be the last season. I heard that the actress that plays Elle, Millie Bobby Brown, on the last day of filming had a bit of a cry, realizing that, oh, it's coming to an end, this is over. And I'll probably do the same thing when I watch that last episode. I love this show so much, but I can't wait to see what happens in that final season. So from what I've heard, they expect, the speculation is that it's going to be late in the year, like November-ish. So, but hopefully I can be talking about that sooner rather than later. Now, on to the last 3 things, all video games that I downloaded onto my various systems. The first one up is a beautiful gem I stumbled upon somehow. I don't remember. I think I saw it in a preview or a review video on YouTube or something like that, and I was like, I gots to have me some of that. And the name of this video game is Prison City. What's cool about Prison City is that it is a newer game, but they did it in an NES style, and they absolutely fucking nailed it. If you didn't know this was a new game, you would play it and go, huh, Like, was this like 1988, 1989 on the NES? You would totally hook, line, and sinker fall for that. They did such a good job of making it look like an old game. The story of it is, and I can't remember exactly what year this came out. I think it was 2022 or something like that. It could have been more recent, but in the last few years somewhere. And the story is, it's in the year 1994. It's kind of this like, not post-apocalyptic type landscape, but society has crumbled basically, and it takes place in Detroit in 1994. All the people leave Detroit. They flee the place because it's a shithole run. Well, I mean, we've kind of seen that before, right? And they just get the hell out of there. And what Detroit becomes then is Prison City. Basically, they put up all these walls around it, and all the criminals and stuff are sent there to live in this giant city that is walled off and just houses the worst of the worst sort of thing. So pan ahead a few years later to 1997, and these techno-terrorists have been working behind the scenes to make this scheme of taking over the world or whatever by arming all of these prisoners with weapons. And obviously, prisoners are, these people are bad news in the first place, but you give them all a bunch of weapons after they've been locked up in a facility for 3 years. Yeah, they're gonna want to cause some chaos, right? So I forget exactly who your character is, but you're tasked with going into Prison City and subduing this, what's soon going to be an army of ne'er-do-wells uprising against the world, sort of thing. So there are 8 levels. You can play them in any order, and what you're armed with, I forget what they call it. It's got a specific term. It's almost like a boomerang type thing that you throw out and it comes back to you, and you can just spam it. You can like rapid fire it, and you can pick up grenades and use a grenade to make some big damage. You can only carry one at a time, and you can also jump and grab onto ledges and shit like that. So basically, you have to enter each of these areas. There's like sewers, the sports stadium, all different portions of this city, and go in and beat the boss. But before you go in and beat the boss, you need to find your contact in that region who basically allows you access to the boss chamber. If you can find the boss chamber, but if you haven't met up with your contact first, it's basically on red light and you can't get in. And then once you talk to them, it goes to green light. You can get in and do the job, sort of thing. And yeah, as you play your way through the game, you can also get permanent upgrades to both your weapon and your health meter. So these are very key. I made my way through 99% of the game without getting these permanent upgrades. I didn't even know they existed. I didn't even stumble upon one of them by accident throughout the game. So, but when I got to the final boss of the game, I was like, holy shit, how am I ever going to beat this guy? So I looked up like how people do it, and I saw like on a YouTube video, this guy's health meter is like way fucking bigger than mine. Like, how did he do that? And then I researched it, and it's like, oh fuck. So then I found the locations for all these upgrades, went back and got them, and then took on the final boss. And the final boss is a character that you deal with throughout the game who kind of, well, I won't give it away, but basically, let's just say it was an inside job, this whole thing. So, but yeah, this game is so much fun. It's got a pretty good difficulty level on it. Portions of it are fairly straightforward and easy. Other portions are pretty tricky. And there's lots of like environmental obstacles. It's very NES-like, the pistons like that come down on conveyor belts and then fire that belches out of things. Like this game, you won't believe it. You have to play it to believe it. Like they did such a good job of replicating a classic NES experience on a new game, and not only a new game, but a new original game, not something based on a previously existing franchise, right? So if you like NES, if you love old retro games, fucking buy this. You will not be disappointed. All right, next up, second game on the list. I downloaded this on my PS4, and Prison City I also had on the PS4. You can see gameplay footage of it if you want in my gameplay footage folder. And you'll also see footage of this game. And the game is called Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked. This game was released, I believe, just this year. I think I got it when it was fairly new, and I just got it a month or two ago. And basically, this game is a remastered collection of 3 previously existing games in a certain franchise. So, Rocket Knight Adventures, if you paid attention to any of me and my buddy Simon's Bill 69 adventures, Rocket Knight Adventures was a game I had on the Sega Genesis back in the 90s, which I absolutely loved, never beat, until Simon and I added it to our Bill 69 playlist. So finally we beat it. It was somewhere in the last handful of games we played. So it's probably in one of those last 3 or 4 videos somewhere of those collections of games that we played in the final leg of our Bill 69 journey. So if you want to know more about it, I also have more information on it in there. But basically, Rocket Knight Adventures, there's this kingdom of Zephyr or something like Zephyra, something like that. Long time ago, the Devotindos Empire invaded Zephyr with this big ship called the Pigstar, and but that insurrection was put down. The Pigstar was captured, and it was locked away for good in a secret location. Many years later, peace has settled over the land, but a new threat is coming. The Devotindos Empire has been rekindled their hatred for the kingdom as Zephyr has been rekindled, and they are on the attack again. And the person leading the attack is a rogue. That basically, the force that protects this good kingdom of Zephyr are called the Rocket Knights, and the leader of these Rocket Knights is a character named Sparkster, and that's the character you play in the game. He's an opossum who has this suit of armor on. He has this sword that can shoot energy short distances, and you can clobber people with that. And he also has a jetpack that you can use to make short bursts and fly all over the place. And you can use it continuously on certain levels that you also fly the whole time. So basically, you are to put down this insurrection by the Devotindos Empire, which is being led by a character named Axel Gear, who used to be a Rocket Knight, but he went rogue and is leading these guys. So basically, you just fight against all the enemies the Devotindos throw your way, and recapture or reclaim the captured princess who Axel Gear kidnapped, hoping that he'd be able to ransom her into getting the key to where the Pigstar is located and getting that ship for his own nefarious purposes, right? So basically, you just have to fight back this insurrection. Now, I loved Rocket Knight Adventures. I still remember the day I bought it at Electronics Boutique in the Penn Center in St. Catharines when I was in university in the mid to late 90s, and I played it like crazy. I love the game. Like I said, never beat it up until me and Simon beat it, but here was a second chance to beat it. So this collection basically includes Rocket Knight Adventures, and then it includes 2 other games in the series which I had no idea even existed. So there was another game. So Rocket Knight Adventures on the Genesis came out in 1993. Sparkster Rocket Knight Adventures 2 came out in 1994 on the Genesis, and then on the Super Nintendo they released a game in 1994 just titled Sparkster. So they were probably released at the same time, but followed different storylines. So basically, those 2 games are basically sequels to the original Rocket Knight Adventures, and basically same kind of story. A sect of creatures or whatever come up against Zephyr, and Sparkster is brought in to basically put the threat down, sort of thing. So I played through these games pretty quickly because they have save points, and I was pretty familiar with the game after playing it since the mid 90s, and most recently beating it with Simon. So it didn't take me long to play through these games. They're like 6, 7, 8 stages long kind of thing. They're not terribly difficult, but they're not easy. especially with save points. They do have their tricky areas, but if you can save as you go, you're able to navigate that. But if you were to be playing them on the original cartridges, they'd be a lot tougher than they were during this experience. But really cool animation made by Konami, so it's a legit experience. And like I said, it's one of my favorite games that I played back in the day. So many great games that I've mentioned over the years, loving, and they all seem to be from a certain series, like the Mega Man games, the Contra games, the Double Dragon games. There's some games that were so original outside of a series. Eventually, Rocket Knight became a series. I didn't know that, but like same with Blaster Master, one of my favorite games of all time. That was kind of a standalone game until they did eventually make some sequels. But Rocket Knight Adventures is one of those under the radar games that ended up being one of my favorites that I think a lot of people don't know about. So if you like games from that era, the mid 90s, from the Sega Genesis and stuff, it's a really cool experience, so I highly recommend it. Last up, this one I downloaded on my Switch. It was originally released in 2021. I began it months and months and months ago, long before me and the wife separated and I moved out on my own. And then I kind of got off of it during all the craziness of moving and stuff, and recently picked it back up and finished it off. And the game in question is called Road 96. Road 96 takes place in the fictional land of Petria. It is a authoritarian nation led by a dictator, and everybody there is a little pissed off with their current state of affairs, and things are very volatile because election time is coming, and people are really they're really adamant about the candidate they're voting for. There's basically two candidates up for running, and people seem to fall either on one side or the other. And there's been no shortage of violence involved in everything that's happened to lead them to this point. And years ago, I think in the 80s, there was an incident where a bomb went off and some people were killed, and it was all a political thing. So there's a lot of tension going on at this time, and young people really seem to have been subjugated. So a lot of them are trying to leave the country, and the only way to do it is to pass by the northern border of Petria and over the border wall. So that is your goal in this game. You take on the mantle of a unnamed teenager, and you have to hit the road and try and make it as far as you can. And why the game is called Road 96 is because Road 96 is that final road that leads you to that border wall and eventual freedom. So you kick off the game with a random teenager. You head out on the road. You can hitchhike. If you gain money, you can take a bus, call a cab, or if you find car keys, you can hijack a car and drive yourself. And along the way, you gain and lose energy by expending energy, but then you can gain it back by taking a nap or finding food. And you can also gain items to, like I said, car keys to try and get you a free ride. You run into other characters as well, some friendly, some not. And as you progress through the game and come across these characters multiple times, you gain more of the backstory behind not only them, but the history of Petria and everything that has gone on to lead the nation up to this point. And if you're not careful, if you run out of energy, you'll fall asleep, you'll pass out, you'll get caught by the cops, you'll be taken away. You can also be killed. You can be shot by people that want to do you harm, that sort of thing. So basically, you have to make the right decisions along the way to get as far as you can and eventually get to the border wall and get away. So if you do get arrested or shot and killed, you basically start again from scratch with a different teenager. And each time it shows a map, and you come from different areas and each time you hit the road, you kind of have a different experience. Your stops are different. You're stopping at diners, at hotels, out in in nature and stuff like that. So every path you take uh, to that border wall is a different one with a different character, sort of thing. So, and eventually, you you gain enough information on who you can trust, who you can't, the certain right thing to do or say in a certain situation to help somebody help speed you along, sort of thing, until finally you have that run with a certain character that gets you to that border wall and over the border wall and to freedom. And that is when you have officially beaten the game. So I was able to do that recently, and it felt pretty good because I was like, I don't think it's going to happen, at least not anytime soon. So really cool game, really different kind of game. I was really impressed with kind of the premise and the execution behind this game. It was really neat, and I remember seeing it advertised, but they didn't really show much of the gameplay, so it was just kind of really mysterious, and it had a really cool vibe to it. And so I was really glad I picked it up. I got it on sale for really cheap, so it was a really good pickup. Now, I can't remember who produced the game, but it's very rough around the edges in terms of the graphics and stuff like that. But it works. It's a really neat looking game, really unique, everything about it, sort of thing. So have it may not be for everybody. So, but if you like the premise, maybe have a look at some gameplay footage online. You can't look at any of mine because, like I said, I have it on my Switch, so I wasn't able to record anything. But yeah, have a look maybe at some other reviews online, some footage of gameplay, and see if you like it. It's definitely a really cool experience. And like I said, if you can get it cheap like I got it, it's a no-brainer. Anyways, those are the 5 things I got up to recently. I've already got a start on the next 5. I hope to have them banged out pretty quick, but I guess that depends on if I can, not fall asleep on the couch each night like I've been doing lately, because I'm so fucking old and tired. But hey, I'll do my best. I'll do my best for you. Toodles! Meow.